very interesting experience. We met another coach on an exceptionally narrow piece of road, and it took a huge amount of skill for the one we met to reverse back.
As you can see, this is very old lava, because once we get close to the crater, we go near the restaurant, you can see the new lava. The new lava is black because there is no vegetation. Takes about 50 years before the vegetation starts on the new lava.
So Etna is very much a live volcano.
When it's clear from here, you can see off Sicily. You can see Catania with the harbor. Now on the road you might see some people with a helmet, because when there is an eruption, the lava is like a river. Usually on the side is cooler, so the river makes like a tunnel, and when the eruption finish, the tunnel you can visit. So on the way here there are some tunnel, and usually there are people that they go and visit this crater, this tunnel.
There you are, I couldn't put that better myself. So this is partway up Mount Etna, with views of lava flows, and there's a lot of traffic up here today.
Right, we're up here on top of the crater. Top of Mount Etna. The fresh lava is the black lava that's down below. In a minute, we are going to go into the craters that are right there. It's very commercialised up here, because as you'll see in a minute, all that lot down there, car park, and up to the ski lifts up to the top.
Hit the road. Go away.
our lovely Cunard Wedgwood china mugs. Nice reassuring slurp there. It's lovely to have this quality china in your stateroom, which you get on Princess. You do get nice china in the other staterooms as well, but I think it might be probably, I don't know, there's probably more variety in Princess, I'm not quite sure. Anyway, I'm going to turn the camera around now to reveal a slightly shell-shocked and shattered looking woman. Not really. I'm just going to do a brief, I always say it's going to be brief and then it ends up being about 10 minutes. A brief resume. Oh, there's a very nice flashy boat coming. Let's just not try and talk over that, but go around and see what that looks like. Oh, yes. I'm not quite sure whether that's a private boat or a ferry. What do you reckon? I think it's a private boat.
It might be. Might be an excursion boat.
It looks, it could be, couldn't it? That was a lovely cup of tea. It's nice to sit and just watch all the comings and goings. And there's a cruise ship out there. Can you see, David, can you see which cruise ship that one is? Yeah. That's a ferry. It looks like a cruise ship. I'll have to get my binoculars out. Right, let's get back to where I was. So, we did an excursion today, and sometimes if you want to go to more than one place, booking a Cunard excursion is a good idea because they get you there. It's as simple as that. So we booked this tour to Taormina, I think I pronounced that correctly, which is a very, very picturesque Sicilian town. It's absolutely beautiful, and you'll see some images as part of this video. It's really pretty, rammed full of cafes and shops, very touristy, but very, very pretty. Like a combination of all sorts of places we've been to. It's sort of south of France meets Sorrento. It's really pretty. And the idea was to walk through, have some free time, but go to the Greek theatre as well. And we've got film for both places, but I'm just doing a resume of how we found the tour. So we were a bit disappointed in the tour, to be perfectly honest with you. A lot of time spent sitting on a coach and not very much time actually out and around in the places. So when we got to Taormina, after about an hour, we were taken by the guide, who was a very nice elderly Italian gentleman, Sicilian gentleman I should say, and he basically route marched us through Taormina, pointed out a few shops, here's shops, nice shops, you have free time later, took us up to the Greek theatre and sort of deposited us in there, and then informed us that we all had to be back at the coach by 11:10. Well, by the time we'd walked up to the Greek theatre, had a look at the Greek theatre, we had just over half an hour left. That was it, half an hour. And there were so many lovely, enticing shops, but we didn't get a chance to do very much other than buy a fridge magnet, which of course is a pink octopus. What else would it be? And I bought a nice little Christmas decoration because I'm collecting Christmas decorations to put on our tree this year for a special travel tree with all the places we've been. We've done so many trips this year. But it was such a rushed job. And when we got back to the meeting point, we decided to take the stairs instead of the lifts because the lifts were so busy. And when we got back on the coach, we had to do the walk of shame, the last people back on the coach. And we had no idea that the coach literally moved away just as we got on it. So we felt, I said, the walk of shame, you terrible British people being late for your coach. So that was a real shame because we could have easily have spent more time in Taormina, but we didn't. So that was one thing that I think the advice I would give you is if you're going to Sicily and you want to see Taormina, book it as a separate tour and don't try and combine it with anything else because you just won't get much time. It's a real shame that actually. Then we went to Mount Etna and we travelled up this incredible road with the most amazing switchbacks, this sort of zigzaggy road, hairpin bends everywhere you look, and it was quite narrow, and we met another coach part way up, and watching the coach drivers trying to navigate that one was fascinating. It was so tight. There was literally this much space between the coaches at one point, but we took a long time to get about 2/3 of the way up Mount Etna. And when we got there, it was so busy everywhere. We went straight out for one of the lunch that was provided as part of the tour. And again, you know, my personal feeling is when I go out, I'd rather they just gave me a voucher and told me to go and buy a sandwich. I really don't need a big thumping great sit down lunch in the middle of the day. I'm just going to ask my trusty other half over here, what did you think of the lunch? What are your views? Remember, you're on camera.
Yeah,
Please do not swear.
Not really. I can't think of words that don't involve swearing. It was pretty carb. It was full of carbs.
You didn't enjoy it,
I
did you?
didn't enjoy it at all. No. Pasta was nice. The cake was nice, but I just didn't need it.
No, I think that's the key.
A cup of coffee or an ice cream at Taormina would have been perfect.
Just right, absolutely.
We dragged all the way out there. I think you had to drive all the way out there in the coach.
To sit down for an hour for lunch.
All the way back in the coach, all 200 yards.
And there weren't enough places for us to sit, were there? So when we walked in, I nipped off to the loo, and when we walked in there was literally nowhere to sit. We were crammed on this table of other people from, well, Americans mainly, and Australians from the ship. We didn't know them. They weren't particularly friendly. We didn't really want to talk to them, to be honest. And they certainly didn't want to talk to us. So we sat there with a couple of faces like slapped bottoms. And it's that idea that you've been sat on a coach for 2 hours and then they take you out, they give you back 5 minutes in a town that you really want to see, and then they take you on another great big coach trip. And then you sit down and have a blooming lunch, which is the last thing you want when you've been sat on a coach for over an hour.
Yeah.
And it was such a rush. We had some very, very rock hard ciabatta bread, followed by a starter, which was basically lettuce and tomato with a sort of vinaigrette thing on. And then it was a quite tasty pasta with aubergine, but with gnocchi. I mean, it was carbs on steroids, tiny helpings, and it all came out in a hell of a rush. And then that was followed up with a piece of lemon cake, which was actually quite nice. But there were 8 of us on our table. We had 1 bottle of red wine between 8 of us. I didn't drink anything. I just had some water. But you know, I think that's the problem with some of these excursions, is that people. It's eating. It's just eating. And if you're going on an eating excursion, that's fine. But if you're actually wanting to go and see somewhere and explore somewhere, you can get your own lunch. You don't need to sit down and have a 4-course blooming meal in the middle of the day. It's just a waste of time. So we both sat there feeling a bit naffed off because we wanted to go and see stuff and we couldn't, basically. Anyway, when lunch was over, we then were bussed all of about 200 yards down the hill. You know, we could walk down there, but never mind, to one of the craters on Etna, and that was fascinating. We've got some really good footage that we'll show you as part of this film about the crater, and you know that was quite impressive actually. So that was good. We had about half an hour to mooch around the crater and go in a crater and look up at the mountain, but it was busy. So I think my observations on the excursion were that there was far too much time spent sitting on a coach. I think we spent probably out of 8 hours, I think we probably spent half of it sitting on a coach, which is just, you know, it's a bit tedious, isn't it? We didn't have enough time in Taormina. It was all a bit rushed, and they chucked in this sort of hour sit down lunch, which we just did not need. So I would check very, very carefully when you're booking Cunard excursions, and just think, if you want to go and do something and get a good immersion into a particular place, it's probably best, and we've learned from this, to do one excursion to one place. So like tomorrow, our next excursion is Herculaneum. No, it isn't. You say it's Herculaneum, isn't it? We're going to Naples tomorrow. We're going to Herculaneum for the afternoon, and we're just doing Herculaneum. We're going to have 3 hours there, and that is lots of time to really take in what's around. So I think if you want to do Taormina, it's lovely. I'd love to go back there. It's a beautiful place, but I would just do an excursion to that one place, and then Etna I would do as a separate excursion if I was able to. But you live and learn, don't you? So it's been an interesting day, but it's been a bit frustrating as well. So that concludes my observations, which I said would only take a couple of minutes. Guess how long my video is? How long have I been jabbering for? No, 10.
10.
Anyway, this is my opportunity to say, please don't forget to subscribe to Pink Octopus Productions, because we've got lots of videos. There'll be lots of videos on this Mediterranean cruise. We'll be doing lots of observations. We're going to be chucking in some observations about what's lovely about Queen Victoria. We're also going to do some walks along what could be better about Queen Victoria. And if you are thinking of going on a cruise for the first time ever, think about Cunard, because it is really, really good. But we'll do a separate video on that. So hopefully you've enjoyed hearing about our lovely day, which was good but could have been better. I think that's how I would say it was okay, but it could have been better. Thank you for watching.